This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast, the first show since both Del Mar and Saratoga have now begun. Show 352, July 24th, Tuesday, July 24th, 2018 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal. Did the old midnight run last night, stayed in Saratoga for the day, sat in a box courtesy of our friends at 10 Strike Racing. Always a fun way to experience Saratoga. Then the ice cream man and I had a nice dinner and hit the road. Got back in here in the middle of the night. Going to try to take care of business, button up a few things for the next 36 hours or so before heading right back up. I hate to leave there during the meet, but once or twice it makes sense to come back down here to Brooklyn, and it's good to see the bunker in fine fettle. Joined today by a guy who's, he's pretty much always here. He's been traveling the world. He's back in Planet, Texas. Hopefully his attire at the moment is a little bit better than it was the other day in the sound studio and over at studios in Albany doing the last touches to the voiceover for the World Horse Players Tour. We'll talk a little bit about his some of his clothes choices in the past have made me shake my head. None quite like this. I'm talking about the People's Champ, Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
Look. This project has been more fun than a lot of things I've done in my life, and I'm super excited about it. It's going right down the right path that I think we want it to go down from all angles. But for whatever reason, this has been like an AC-less operation. Everywhere we are, I feel like I'm sweating like crazy. It's hot. There's no AC. We're in the sweat box in Santa Monica. We're in the sweat box. Everywhere you look, I'm sweating through this project. And I felt a little bit like a diva when I was like, look, I just can't work when I get hot. But I had to take my shirt off and spend the 4-hour audio session shirtless in Albany on Sunday.
There's photographic evidence of this, and I hope you cop to it, send it around. But speaking of sweating like Nixon on a humid day or Albert Brooks in broadcast news, don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to see. Very proud of the work that Dan Illman, producer Craig, producer AJ, and I did last week on the Upper West Side with Harvey PAC, shooting the first in a series of videos with Harvey telling old stories from the racetrack. But it was one of those ridiculous days, and we walk in, Harvey has the living room set up, and it's great. The AC's running, cool as a cucumber, sit there, this is going to be easy. Until producer Craig delivers the coup de grace. Oh, or maybe it was producer AJ actually who noted, yeah, there's this real air conditioner hum. We better turn that off. 10 minutes later, well, a picture says, speaks 1,000 words. And if you go ahead and watch my reaction shots, typically guffawing to Harvey's various stories, you want to see sweating, JK, you check that one out. I'm turning bright red.
It's a tough game. That's what got us on Sunday was the AC in the background. I guess there's too much ambient noise for those, especially for those high-powered mics. In fact, we could go on this whole poor Scott. We could go on forever all these stupid stories about our voiceover session. A fly got in the room, and we could hear him through our headphones because the mics were picking up how loud he is. We had to take a break and waft him out of there to get him out of the room. So
that other voice you hear on the line returning to us after an absence, but not an absence from the racing world. His name's been on a lot of leaderboards, super active on Twitter, where you can find him at CarsoniPH. He is the founder of Public Handicapper, expert contest player, and just all-around terrific horse player, Scott Carson. How are you, Scott?
I'm good, thanks. Great to be back. It's been, at least a year?
Jeez, we messed that up. We got to get you on more often than that.
Well, I gotta, I have to earn my chops, right?
No, you earn them all the time. A fantastic Twitter follow for sure. I think it's just a testament to how nuts we've been that we haven't had you on in that time frame. But it's fantastic to have you here. And I think we'll start off the conversation today by talking a little bit about some of the stakes racing that we saw over the weekend. And I'll start it with a sort of a very general comment, and then we can drill down to some of the specifics. But Scott, I'll ask you in particular, was there a particular performance at Saratoga or Del Mar that you saw over the weekend that really made you sat up and take notice?
Well, yeah, there were two. Well, first of all, I completely focused on Saratoga, which we'll discuss why later. But I did see the Catalina Cruiser race at Del Mar, and that was pretty dang impressive. I mean, he looked like he just looked like a monster. And then the other monster was Monomoy Girl. I mean, I watched that race with my girlfriend, and she's like, "Why did we go 3 deep on the pick 5 in this race?"
That's true love.
That's a good question.
Oh, that's great. Let's go back to Catalina.
And she's like, that horse isn't even dirty. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when they run in front.
Great. Catalina Cruiser, very impressive on the clock, comes back with a 107 buyer speed figure. How serious of a player, JK, is Catalina Cruiser in this division going forward?
I mean, I think she's really. I mean, Catalina throws me off. Ugh.
That's a place. Come on, this isn't an Ashley Loves Sugar situation.
But maybe it's a Spanish thing, like growing up in Texas. But when you end words with A, they feel feminine to me.
Okay, that's fair. Better get used to this one. This horse just ran a 107. You can't be.
Yeah, no, absolutely no. It's funny. I don't know if you remember this, but our friend Robert Chow, this is the horse he went all in on in the comeback race in the WHT contest we had at Santa Anita.
I remember.
Yeah. So, anyways, no. I mean, he's nice, and I was curious. I haven't seen why Accelerate and the other horses were scratched. I don't know if it was because of just the timing situation and they knew what this one was all about, but I heard possibly an East Coast trip too. I saw that. Maybe obviously the Whitney's going to come too soon, but maybe the Woodward. So that would be awesome.
It'd be very interesting to see. It's great when you get to see horses run in Del Mar and Saratoga the same meet. Last one I can recall, I'm sure there's been since, but Arrogant popped right to mind talking about trying to do that double. That's interesting. Did you hear any specifics about why not the Pacific Classic, which I thought would have been the obvious target?
They're going to leave Accelerate at home. I think it's the same ownership group, right? This is Ronis Racing, I believe, for both of them. So
yes,
yeah, they're going to leave Accelerate home. Obviously, he's run well at the 1.25 miles on the track, and the old guy kind of deserves to have the path of not least resistance, but to be able to run out of his barn and out of his own barn, and then just put Catalina Cruiser on the airplane, and then obviously the Twitterverse will blow up with formulator stats about how John Sadler is so awful shipping, and then we'll get a good price on Catalina Cruiser, and we can single in the pick 6.
We'll talk about that when the time comes, but let's keep it to the stakes races. I agree with Scott about Monomoy Girl just once again asserting superiority over that division. In a normal year, we might be looking at a 3-year-old filly horse of the year candidate. Obviously not so much in 2018. But what was your take on Monomoy Girl's run the other day?
I thought she was good. In the middle of the race, I had a little side bet about who was going to go off favored, and so I won, and I gave the double or nothing opportunity at about a 1/4 mile into the race, and I saw how close Midnight Bisou was, and I thought Monomoy Girl and Flo messed this up. They let Midnight Bisou into the race, and now they're going 48. The whole jockey's dilemma that we always talk about. Midnight Bisou is going to run her down late because she's a better closer, and da-da-da-da-da. He turned me down on the in-running offer, thank goodness, because Monomoy Girl was never going to get past.
A 98 buyer speed figure. Sounds like the Alabama is not going to be on the cards, despite something I think Brad Cox said in the immediate aftermath of the race. It sounds like it will be the Cotillion running for more money, a little bit more time, and a little bit less distance. It's not. I was actually speaking to Liz Crow, who picked out Monomoy Girl at the paddock bar yesterday, and it wasn't really that the distance is a concern so much as those other factors had led to the no Alabama, which will, certainly a loss for us at Saratoga not to get to see a star run again, but it sounds like a pretty reasonable decision.
She's odds on for 3-year-old filly. I mean, she's going to win 3-year-old filly at this point, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
But what if she wins the cotillion and runs and hits the board in the distaff? Is she horse? Is she female? Is she like the filly or the filly and mare?
How could you not be?
Oh, is there an Eclipse Award just for the best old? Oh, there's older and 3-year-old.
Oh, right. 3-year-old. So she gets 3-year-old. Can't get old.
She can't win. She can't win horse of the year. So never mind. Yeah. Stupid question. Mistake jar.
But put that one. I have the. There it goes. Speaking of horse of the year, we never talked about this because of when it came up in our little summer vacation, the semi-vacation that we took, taking off 3 shows in 5 the other month. I'll start with Scott with this question. Do you think we will ever see Justify run again? The news, for those who didn't hear, living under a rock, etc., apparently filling in the ankle. They gave him a couple of days. They brought him back, trained on it again, little filling still, giving him some more time. Will we ever see this horse on the racetrack in the afternoon in anger again, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Badford brings these 3-year-olds that run in the Triple Crown back. They always come back for something. They come back. War Emblem came back. It's disappointing that he's not back for the Haskell, which I go to every single year. But he hasn't run that fast. If you look at it in Beyer terms, he hasn't run huge figures. So I don't see any reason why he would be hurt. I can see why Mendelssohn would be hurt. Panic figure, Dubai at a young age. By pooing him because his figs were too low. And to me, what that says is that he's got upside. So, I don't think that he's hurt himself on the racetrack. Now, I may be wrong in that, he actually did hurt himself and that he's not going to race again. But my guess is that whatever it is, he's going to get over it and he'll run at least one more time.
JK, what is your prediction? And if you see him again, where do you think it will be?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll run again. I mean, I think they just give the horse some time, run him in the Awesome again against Older, and then run him in the Classic. And I don't see how that plan doesn't work, or is I don't see why that plan would be problematic. It actually seems kind of perfect to me. In all honesty, if you had a Triple Crown winner and you got to lay out a schedule you thought was great after what he went through, is give him some time off. If you didn't have the Grade 1 Haskell or the Grade 1 Travers in between, people wouldn't be, screaming at the top of their lungs for him to run in those races if they weren't the prestigious races that they are and the fun races that they are for us as fans. So give him some time, let the ankle sort itself out. Obviously, it didn't seem like it was anything tragic that got him sent away from the racetrack to get evaluated. And so just give him some time, let him start to ease himself back into it, run him in the Awesome again against Older at his home track, and then put him on a plane and run him at Churchill.
Well, 2 points. One, and I'll get to this more, I'll expand on it. Surprise, surprise, I'm more cynical than you, JK. And then point 2, I will say this. If he does come back, it'd be very unlikely to me that the Breeders' Cup would be his last race. At that point, you're going to probably add the Pegasus onto the card as well, because it wouldn't take away from the breeding season next year. But one thing about that. If you had a horse who's worth a ton and people think that he might not run again, and you think he might not run again because of the risk reward of like the value that he is and taking the chance, blah, blah, blah. If you run him in the Awesome again and you run him in the Classic and he wins the Classic, why roll those dice again? I don't understand that point at all. To me, if he's well enough to run in the Classic for that many million and he's still sound, to me, you're either going to put him away now and be done with it, or you're going to try to pick up every penny that you can along the way. So, and the time.
I don't think they're trying to pick up purse pennies, though. I think they're trying to pick up validation and facing older's value of in the breeding shed rather than the racetrack dollar.
This is where I get out of my depth in the breeding side of the industry. But to me, I'm not sure how much more in breeding value you get at this point when you already have about the sexiest thing you can have, an undefeated Triple Crown winner. But because of the unique way this partnership is, with some of the owners not really not participating at all on the breeding side and only on the racing side, to me it makes sense that you might keep the horse in training to try to pick up every penny as long as the horse is sound. But those last few words, that's where my brain's going. Filling can be a lot of things. Filling can be just inflammation based on something silly that goes away, or filling can be a symptom of an underlying cause. So when you've seen it twice, I just worry. I take Scott's point about how even though he started so late, the figures aren't so fast to necessarily – it's not a horse you would think just looking at if you didn't have a historical context and you just looked at the paper, you wouldn't necessarily think he's a horse who'd run so fast that, oh my goodness, something's going to be a setback. But with the historical context, the races were fast enough to me within a short period of time that it certainly wouldn't shock me. These thoroughbreds, they do amazing things, and they're running incredibly fast on, just they're miracles of biomechanics, really, the things they can do. It never surprises me when one could develop an issue, no matter how fast or slow they've run, because what they're sort of doing in a way is defying logic and nature by how fast they run anyway. So I'm just worried by the fact that there was sort of like a double. The filling twice just makes me nervous about the future. And if you made me bet, I mean, I'm not saying there's a 0% chance he runs, not saying that at all, but I'd put it more like 33% he runs, 67% we've seen the last of him on the racetrack in anger. But believe me, I hope you guys are right, because I'm of the belief, assuming there is no underlying cause and we get back to see the Justify we've come to know and love, that he hasn't run his best race yet.
I got an idea. Let's do this. Let's come up with because you finally won a head-to-head with a declined head-to-head, by the way, may I add. I didn't fully accept your head-to-head on the Haskell-Travers thing. But since you won one, it's kind of like when you walk by the roulette thing. You see it's been black all those times in a row. It's got to be red. Because the fact that you actually won a head-to-head means I'm about to go on a run of about 12 in a row again. So let's do a head-to-head that we see him run again, and then we kind of trick fate into getting him back on the racetrack.
That's interesting. And, yeah, I would normally not take that bet because – it's just it feels wrong to bet on something that I so want to see happen. But with your idea sort of the reverse mush, JK, I'll take it that we've seen the last of Justify running in races. I'm only doing it to hopefully reverse jinx it. I don't want anybody thinking, oh, he doesn't like Justify, anything like that. And maybe I can improve because my current head-to-head record with you now, I think it's 2-117. So hopefully we can make it 2-118.
Yeah. If I lose, I will drive you around anywhere you want because I know you're scared to get on the highway.
I told you not to tell anyone, JK. I can't believe you.
Unbelievable. You're a grown man who's scared to drive on the highway. Sound like a 16-year-old cheerleader who just got her driver's license.
Yeah, it must be a long trip to Saratoga.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's what I have the ice cream man for. What do you think I keep him around for? He's a good chauffeur, but I'll switch it out. I was disappointed, JK. You made it sound like you were going to be Mario Andretti on the highway. You drove very, very safely. I had no idea you had a commercial driver's license.
At one point I did. I drove a school bus for when I coached. We had to do the sub-varsity games. But, I was trying to take it easy. It was raining that morning, and so, I wanted to make sure we got there for the voiceover.
I want to ask Scott his opinion. If we do see Justify again, how good do you think he'll be? Do you think we'll see comparable performances to what we've seen? Do you think there could be more in the tank?
I think there's more in the tank. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see him run. I want him to come back because he's ran.
Could be yet to come. You buy that notion?
Absolutely. I mean, American Pharaoh's best races were after the Triple Crown. So I don't see why Justifies won't be also. I mean, Baffert always called him a superior racehorse, and he ran, figures that were enough to win, but he's got, if you put it into buyer terms, he's got a 120 in him.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I really hope we get to see it, and I'm happy to lose that head-to-head in the process. Let's talk a little more about some of the racing from last weekend. We obviously had other Grade 1 activity going on in terms of the Grade 1 Diana. JK, what were your thoughts on that race?
Man, she needed every jump, didn't she? It looked like she was going to hang for a second in Sister Charlie. And I think at this point I was living the dream for 5 of 6 in the pick 6, but obviously I was rooting for the Piper, who was alive big to Sister, not big, but alive to Sister Charlie. And look, she is a grinding type that I think they were right. She's probably better longer. I thought it was a great ride by Johnny to keep her in the clear. When you have the best horse, sometimes it's better to do that. It makes it look a little bit desperate when you win by a nose, but if he would have tried to save ground with her and then her try to quicken with some of these other horses, she would have got the exact same trip that a Raving Beauty got, who might have been best if she didn't have the trouble that she had. So, I think both of those Chad horses are nice. Ultra Brat deserves some credit for running as good as she did at 15-1, but I don't think that there's any question in my mind that Sister Charlie and a Raving Beauty probably ran a better race than Ultra Brat. Ultra Brat, the old Fair Hill angle I yap about. I guess you could mention that one. For her. For me, I didn't think she would be better than third. I thought it would be a Chad Brown 1-2. Probably would have been without the trouble. My Sister Charlie gets the job done. 102 buyer speed figure. Scott, did you have a wager on that race? What were your thoughts on the Diana?
Yeah, I was in a Monmouth qualifier. It's just two seats to the NHC. Not as big as the Pick Your Prize pool contest. And I went with New Money Honey in that race, who I also picked on Public Handicapper. She had beaten Sister Charlie last year as a 3-year-old. And I thought, hey, second off the layoff, she's ready. Now, I haven't watched the replay, but I do remember watching the race and thinking that she wasn't right from the beginning. I'd have to look at the replay again to see what happened, but she was not as close as she usually is. And there was some weird goings on in that race. That doesn't mean she still wouldn't have lost, but I'm inclined to sort of give her a pass on that race. Meanwhile, I was with Paul Sherman and Mitch Schumann, and they both had really, they were really contenders in the contest, and they were all over a Raving Beauty. And she got, she half the room was all over a Raving Beauty. And everybody thought she was the one that should have won the race.
Yeah, it looked that way. Bottled up. Remind me of the whole trip, JK. You're good at that. You're good at that game.
Yeah, no, she they sent her away from the gate. I thought right when they popped, she was forward, and then she kind of took back, and Hawksmoor went on. So she kind of got herself stuck inside. She got shuffled a little bit, but she was in a good spot, saving ground on the inside, and then she just checked like at the top at the quarter pole. And the reason I had my eyes on her so much is our buddy Duke Matisse came back, and I won't say the guy's name, but a guy in the backyard, one of their boys, was like doing the show parlay, or like did one of the automated ones where like he had $5,000 bet on a Raving Beauty to show, and so I was like,
I think it was more.
Yeah, I was inclined to see what happened there. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this.
Well, the show parlay was saved though, right? She did end up third.
She did. She got checked a little bit, and then just took her a while to get out. And then when she finally got clear, she was running on late. But I think that Scott had alluded to, there's some weird things going on. And the weird thing, I don't know if he was talking about, but it was the one that I thought was, I predicted New Money Honey to be on the lead from the races that she had run in the past, being fresh and in the way that the other two horses have run as kind of closers. And then a Raving Beauty kind of seemed to be sent out of there. And then if it wasn't for Hawksmoor, she could have found herself loose on the lead.
Is that what you were referring to, Scott?
I wasn't sure she would be on the lead. I wasn't, because I figured Hawksmoor was going to go for the lead, so I didn't expect her to be on the lead. But I certainly expected her to at least be second, and she was like fifth. And I don't know if while I'm on Skype I can watch the replay while we're talking and without you guys hearing it, but I was like about to hit the replay just so I could see what actually happened, because I think she basically got off a little slow and was stuck between horses, just two horses were kind of sandwiched her, and she was a little rank. This is my recollection, but I have to watch the replay to be sure.
Sounds like all three of these Chad Brown horses are potential bet backs from this race. Am I reading that right, JK?
Well, I don't know if New Money Honey is. I don't think she necessarily got a trip you want to bet her back off. I thought she ran worse than you would have expected her to, but how it goes with these fillies. It could, when they're coming back off of breaks, it could just be that she's not what we thought she was, or she's not going to progress into being what we thought she was going to be as a. I think she's a 4-year-old this year. She was a 3-year-old last year. So,
what do you think, Scott? Would you bet her back in the right spot, or are you skeptical now?
Look, she was 9-1 in that race, which I thought was huge value, which obviously didn't pan out. But she didn't finish very far behind. She was only finished like 2 or 3 lengths behind. I got to watch the replay, but it potentially she's a huge bet back. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting.
All right, let's talk. How about a little aside? JK mentioned the man in the backyard using the parlay card. Is that something that either of you have ever done? Has either of you ever filled out a parlay card for horse racing? Scott, we'll start with you.
No.
JK?
No, someone taught me a long time ago, and I had to sit down with a pen and a calculator when I was in college thinking that I was smart trying to play parlays. Parlays are only for when the race happens at the same time, because you want to be able to get down your winnings from your first correct opinion onto a second opinion. The problem is in racing is why put in the parlay card when you can just do it manually? And if it starts to rain, if there's a gate scratch to a speed horse and you've picked a closer, why tie yourself into a situation where you can't then change it? And the other thing is, especially if you're playing show or even win, is what happened, I think, with that person who did it is one of the races was just was bomb. So he got a lot more for his show than he would have gotten. So he could have he lost the option of putting $2,500 in his pocket. He had to let the whole thing roll. So yeah, I think parlays are bad news in sports. And here, give yourself the option. You only parlay when it happens at the same time.
Now, I asked that question. You asked it there. I asked it years ago to a guy many, many moons ago, back in the Saratoga Special era. Frank Scottoni and I would pretty often, our regular spot was hanging out in the clubhouse at Saratoga, underneath that box area, where the screens are, underneath that the connections often watch the races. It's kind of a fun place to watch a race every now and again. Have we ever gone in there and watched on the screen?
Are you talking about right by the path where the jock's path?
Right by the jockey path comes right there, and there are those TVs right under the boxes.
Yep.
And there was a guy in there who had a similar story. I don't think it was that much money, but at the time, whatever this was, 20 years, Frank was there. It was in the 90s, so so 1,000 would have been the equivalent, I think, of 10,000 today to me emotionally. And the guy had the parlay going, and I asked that question, and he said, "Well, the problem is, I want the." I know I want to do it, but if I get to the position, I won't do the bet manually. So I force myself to do it by putting it on the parlay card. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's degenerate even for a horse player.
It's I know I shouldn't do it. Right. And I know that when it comes time to do it, that I'm not going to let myself do it. So I'm just going to do it now, so that when the time comes to make a smart decision, I have no control.
I can't do it. I can't make the smart decision later. Let's just roll with it. I want to talk about the Eddie Reed, JK. I'm thinking you might be the only one of us who had a chance to do much with that race. Did you get a chance to watch it? And what did you think of Catapult winning Son of Kitten's Joy with 100 buyer speed figure out there at Del Mar on Sunday?
I'll be honest, I didn't watch the race back. I did see the results. I don't know if you were sitting there, but a friend of ours he's often referred to as a prince, got a text from someone saying that they thought Catalina Cruiser was going to run huge. I looked, the horse switched to Sadler and and the horse is going to be 20-1 and whatever. Got on the plane and didn't look back. The horse paid $44 and won. So
Catapult. You said you meant Catapult, not Catalina Cruiser there.
Oh, did I say that? Sorry, I meant Catapult. Yeah. That's Catapult. Yeah. Paid $44. So I didn't even. I looked at the race for, a couple minutes prior just to see who I thought maybe was live in there, and I didn't think it was Catapult. I thought Next Shares was a horse I've been trying to bet for the last since Keeneland, when the horse ran in Keeneland. So that's where I landed on the race. But Catapult ran huge and Drayden Van Dyke's having an unbelievable meet. He had the unfortunate issue, or not unfortunate issue, but I guess the situation where he's the one who broke Justify's maiden, and then had to watch Mike Smith win the Triple Crown on the horse. But now he's got 3 really good 2-year-olds for Jerry Hollendorfer, the horse Instagram, and there's another winner this weekend, and Brill as well. So good for Drayden. Things seem to be going the right direction for him.
Maybe a little bit of karma. At play. Scott, I want to talk to you about your Saratoga project. Give us the rundown, and what is the project, and where did this idea come from?
Okay, so the project is it's a challenge. It's to win 50,000 or bust at the meet, this meet, and now's my chance to do it because I don't have to work for a while, like a year and a half. And I got some bankroll from the NHC when I finished 6th, and that was worth $62K. So I have that money, and one of the reasons I enter high bankroll contests is to sort of force me to have the balls to bet big, and by issuing this challenge to myself and doing it publicly, it allows me to bet out of my comfort zone. So that's the idea. And it is one reason why I didn't have a very good opening day. but another reason why I did it is because yesterday I really liked Ruby Notion, and I hit the try for 2,000. But normally I'm going to crush that race, and the only reason why I didn't is because I was reeling from having a bad first 3 days. So it's really, it's psychological. It's I do the Breeders' Cup betting challenge every year, no matter what, whether I win my way in or whether I have to put up the 10,000. I do that so that I can learn how to bet 1,000 to win on a horse, or even 3,000 or 5,000. And I was talking to Tony Zoe about this the other day because I ran into the Monmouth contest, and he said, "How are you going to do it, the 50K? How are you going to do it?" And I said, "Probably with a pick 5." But but it was interesting. We were talking about it, and he agreed with me that you have to force yourself to get out of your comfort zone, and really bet. Great, you could hit a 30-1. But if you have 20 to win place on that 30-1, it's not that big a deal. But if you have 500 to win place on that 30-1, then that's something memorable, and that's something that can change your life and can pay the health insurance if you're trying to make a living doing this.
Now, JK, you've talked before about the importance of muscle memory when it comes to the handicapping side of the equation, how contests have helped you recognize what a live 8-1, 12-1, 15-1 looks like. Have you ever thought about it in the terms Scott's describing, muscle memory, to become comfortable making smart, larger wagers?
Yeah, it's funny because it kind of it makes a ton of sense for me personally. It kind of all happened at the same time. Like I wasn't in a position financially in my life to make $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 wager until the exact same time that I started playing in contests. So, like, as I started playing in contests, I started being able to actually do that type of thing in life as well. So it kind of happened at the same time. But I'll tell you what, it's like, you know, it's still hard. It still feels weird in contests when you bet $3,000 on a horse to win, or, you know, a couple Breeders' Cups ago, I bet $6,000 on Yellow Agate and Yellow Agate. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And it was like a weird thing to try to get. It's still a tricky part. I think it's one of the things that people struggle with, and I think it's one of the reasons that guys like I won't even throw myself into that, but guys like Scott and Paul Sherman and you know and even the Pick 3 boys, because they're not scared to lose that money. And there's a lot of guys that go into those contests that are scared to lose the money, and it's a huge edge for players that aren't scared to lose it when they're chasing that carrot of the prize pool.
I love your selective memory, not mentioning 30,000 on doubles to justify when you're talking about ridiculous bets that you've made in your life. Scott, how important are contests to this $50,000 challenge?
Well, I mean, you know, they're important. Maury Wolf gave me some advice when I was mulling over the idea of trying to go pro, and he said, keep playing contests, because the equity value is there. You know, you all the entry fees generally come back. So really there's not much takeout. If any at all, there's not much takeout. So keep on playing contests, and you know, he said you're good at that, so it's one of your one of your strengths. So keep on doing that as much as you possibly can. And so with that being said, the $50K that I'm prepared to lose, which I certainly hope I don't lose all of it, and I don't expect to lose all of it. I hope to make $50K. But part of that will be the entry fee and the betting bankroll for the Saratoga contest. So you're looking at, you know, the Friday contest is 1,000, and I've got 2 entries, so that's 2,000, and then the Saturday contest is 2,000, 1,000 entry fee, 1,000 to bet, and I have 2 entries there. So I've got $6,000 tied up there of the $50,000 that I'm prepared to lose. 6,000 of that is just in the Saratoga contest, and if I win one of those contests, the prize money will count. You know, in other words, yeah, it's part of the it's all inclusive.
Yeah, this could be a place to get it done in one fell swoop. I would think, especially with this contest going to Saturday, the 4-Star Dave Challenge, Saturday, August 11th. It's going to be a big deal. There's going to be a lot of money on offer should you get the job done. I think it makes perfect sense that's a part of it. And you talk about muscle memory. This is a contest that you've won before.
Yeah, I usually do pretty good at the Saratoga contest. Even when it wasn't live bankroll, I think I finished 5th once, which was amazing. And then that year, Chris Larmy finished 2nd, and so he had to buy dinner, which was the only, you know, consolation to not winning that contest. But yeah. You know, I mean, I love Saratoga, and that's another reason why I decided to issue myself this challenge for Saratoga. Well, it partially because I just read Exotic Betting by Steve Christ again, and he was talking about how great Saratoga is because there's so much, uninformed money going into the betting pools. There's 20 to 30,000 people there every single day betting. You know, they're betting hunches, they're betting names, they're betting whatever. So this is a great opportunity. And I thought, okay, but besides that, I actually do pretty well at Saratoga. So why not, just try to hammer that meat? And, if I can do well, then it just extends my retirement.
I like it. You mentioned Maury Wolf, one of the sharpest guys around. I guess you guys have known each other. I think he mentioned to me at some point from a message board you've been on for years. How valuable of a resource has he been for you in this project, and what's some other advice that he's had?
So I mean, Maury, I see and talk to Maury only a few times a year because he doesn't live, he lives in Washington/Florida. But, I got any chance I get to hear Maury talk, and and that includes like on the Steve Bick show. Like I heard him on the Steve Bick show the week before the Derby, and his number one advice was, don't try to hit the super, which of course, even though I value his opinion completely, I put like $500 into the super. But no, he sent me an email, and let me put it this way: I copied and pasted that email into a text file that says Maury Wolf advice, and I read it periodically, and a lot of the things that he's advised me on, I have not done yet, which is a fault of mine. But there's only so many hours in the day.
I know bet construction is one of the things that he emphasizes. Is that something that you haven't had a chance to work on too much yet, or is that is that part of the advice that you have taken so far?
Yeah. That's let's put it this way. Okay, yesterday Ruby Notion won at like 27-1. It was a horse I really liked, and I almost tweeted about it, but I was feeling the burn from having lost a lot of money the first day on opening day. So I was just kind of keeping close to the vest. If I had used the vigor that I had on the opening day with Ruby Notion, I would have crushed that race and made 10 to 20,000. But I didn't do it. So I did apply bet construction to the race. I was like, how can I pull money out of this race with the opinion that I have of Ruby Notion? So, but the only thing is I only bet $100 in the race, partially because I was behind on time. So I would say there's two really important things. One is be prepared, but the second critical bit of advice, and this comes straight from Maury, spend at least half the time constructing your bets as you do handicapping the race. Which means if you're handicapping the race for an hour, spend an hour figuring out how if you have an opinion, figure out how you're going to pull money out of that race. And it's something that when I've done it, it's been good. I have to do more of it.
JK, talk about that concept of bet construction, and in this day and age, with the way that your play has evolved, how much time do you estimate you spend handicapping a race versus constructing tickets?
Yeah, I mean, I told someone that exact phrase at some point this weekend. I've taken it further. I used to be an hour a race handicap guy, and I am now a 7 to 25 to 30 minute a race guy at the most, 30 minutes, and I'll spend an hour constructing a wager. Like I'm almost double the time constructing the wager that I am handicapping. If sometimes not more than that, just depending on the complexity of the race. I mean, if it's a double, obviously it doesn't take that much time, but if it's a pick 4, pick 5, pick 6, takes a little bit more time to construct it. So, I've completely changed in that regard, because I've gotten to the point where don't take this the wrong way, but like you get obsessed when you first start handicapping about picking winners. You get obsessed with like, I gotta pick a winner, I gotta pick a pick one horse, pick a winner. And I realized that you don't have to do that. You just have to successfully identify how the race is going to be run, who are the most likely winners, who are the horses that present value, and then structure your bet in an intelligent way that covers all of those scenarios. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you were right or wrong about which horse is going to win. It just matters that your idea of how the race was going to unfold was right. So I completely agree. I'm little handicap, all bet.
This brings up something somebody critiqued me for, and I've been meaning to bring it up because it dovetails perfectly with your point. And it's kind of hard on a podcast, because on a podcast, really our job, anytime we're in a public forum, our job is to help people find winners. And that can be from talking about a race in a certain way to get their head going right, or it can be picking horses. And we want to, and sometimes I'll call you on it, JK. You'll make a very intelligent dissertation about a race, and I'll say, for the record, who's your pick, right? Almost like not necessarily even who you're going to bet, but who can we claim afterwards as a pod winner if wins? Because you can't give out 3 and have 1 win and say that's the winner. So this relates back to the Belmont Oaks. When we talked about Athena ahead of the Belmont Oaks, we talked about it very specifically in terms of prices. And I remember saying, 9-2 is too short, 6-1 would be good, something to that effect. But I didn't pick her by any means. And then after the race, when we came back on the next time, I think I crowed a little bit, just saying, "Oh, wow, Athena 10-1. Hopefully that helped some pod listeners." And this listener, understandably, was like, "Wait a second, Pete, why are you saying that was going to help me? I left that race being totally confused as to who you like." And so for one thing, I wanted to take a mea culpa. I was not claiming Athena as a winner. I did have some other people say, "Hey, thank you. I threw that one in the pick 3 because I listened to the show," etc. That's what I was sort of talking about. It's not really appropriate for a podcast host, I guess, who gives picks to like, it's definitely not appropriate to claim that as a winner. And I hope it didn't come off like I was doing that. But the point that this gets back to, which I think relates to what both JK and Scott are talking about, at the end of the day, successful players, a lot of the time, some are more selection-oriented, JK being one of the most selection-oriented I've met. But at the end of the day, we're still not really betting horses so much as we're betting prices. And another way of putting it might be, and the way that I've seen you construct your exotics, JK, you're not so much trying to pick races as you are find places where you can bet against some horses and construct tickets to, as Scott was saying, pull money out of the race. I want both your comments on that. We'll start with you, JK. If you can get it off mute.
Yeah, you're right. Good call. I was like talking like, "Well, Pete, if yeah. Well, the thing is a great example of that is Saturday, where we did the Naira Bet seminar, which was a ton of fun, and we one of my opinions in the 4th race, or maybe it was the 3rd, was that I don't really have a strong opinion who's going to win, but I have a strong opinion that Awesome Slew is not going to win. And so I'm going to create my bet and pull money out of this sequence. I think that Scott said that, and I love that. I'm going to start saying I'm going to pull money out of this sequence. I'm not necessarily going to crush it, but I have an opinion that's going to allow me to pull money out of the sequence, and that's what we tried to do. I was spread to a certain extent in race 1. I was spread to a certain extent in the other 2 legs leading into the Awesome Slew race, and then I used 3 horses in the Awesome Slew race. We were alive for 10,000, between 10 and 15,000 to 3 horses in the finale, and we got unlucky and got beat. But I'm fine with putting myself in a position where I really don't believe that in any other race I was exposed in terms of like a horse beating me. The only thing that had to happen for us to hit that was for Awesome Slew to run out. Obviously, we got beat in the 5th race, but I love that idea of pulling money out of the race by covering scenarios that you believe are likely to happen or can happen, but taking a stand in any way you want on a certain area. And mine was Awesome Slew not running well.
Opinions and sequences can be one of 2 things. They can be pro opinions. Well, really more than this. They can be positive opinions. They can be survive in advance. They can be negative opinions. And I always like 3. I want to have 2 of those 3 if I have opinions in the 3 races. If I'm going to participate, you just sort of scale it up as you go along.
One, just real fast, explain. Yes, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd leg were like 7-1, 7-1, 8-1 bet down to 5-2. And so we were alive for that nice score. But if everyone who's paying attention on Saturday, when I talk about taking 45 minutes to an hour to construct your wager, if the 1 horse in the 1st race, the entry, the 1 in the 1A, which was like 1-2, if they would have won, we would have been in a similar position because we would have had like a $22, $25 pick 5 rather than $1 or 50 cents or whatever it was. It would have been made up by the fact that I knew the 1 and the 1A were more likely than the 4. That was 7-1 in the 1st leg in the 1st race. But you have to take the time to build that. because it doesn't matter if you know the 1A is more likely to win or the 4, blah, blah, blah. You have to take more time on building the ticket so you don't get upside down.
That's the whole efficiency concept. We talked about it at the seminar at NYRA on Saturday. Oh, a quick aside, and then I want to get back to Scott and hear more about the exact specifics of how he intends to approach these races, if he's betting every race, what sequences he's focusing on, etc. Just to let you start grinding on that, Scott, while I tell folks the actual location of these Saturday seminars, because I don't want to say I was misinformed. I think I screwed it up. It's going to be on the second floor of the grandstand. I got that part right. But it's farther down towards the top of the stretch than the carousel. In fact, it's an area that nearly abuts the new stretch VIP area right above that white tent, that Taste of New York tent, whatever it is, where we were last year. So please do come see us. We had a lot of people there on Saturday, and the Periscope did very well. Still finalizing the lineup for next week, but we're going to have some excellent guests, and we're going to be doing this every Saturday. Please come see us. Please come say hi. Mention the podcast. And we always like to meet fans. So, Scott, back to the mechanics of how you're going to do this. I'll ask it this way. Are you playing every race?
No, I'm definitely not playing every race. So I have two really important comments to make on race selection. The first is, and I want to stress this. I listen to the pod whenever I can, and I hear, like 3/4 of them thanks to the Monmouth contests, where I can listen to the pod on my way down to Jersey. It's an 1.5-hour drive, so I usually get like 1.5 pods out of a trip like that. But I'm beginning to now listen to the pod in pieces. So I may be making a 10-minute trip up to the deli and hearing the pod. Anyway, the point is that I really appreciate Jonathan stressing over and over again that if you're going to play the pick 5, make sure you have an opinion. And that means, I'm going to distill it into this, which I don't think he's ever phrased it this way, but you have to have at least one race where you only need to go 2 deep. And my problem is that I sometimes find myself going 4 or 5 deep in almost every race. And I'm like, oh, it's so much money. And I trim it down. So I'm like, okay, to make this affordable, I have to go 2 deep. But really, I feel more comfortable if it was 5 deep. I go 2 deep, and then one of those horses that I trimmed knocks me out. So, it's visions of grandeur in my head. Like, I want to hit that $40,000 pick 5, and that's why I still play it. But at the same time, I trim, and I'm afraid to go that deep because I'm afraid then the 6-4 is going to win. So I'm going to reiterate, I'm going to reemphasize for Jonathan, and I appreciate him reemphasizing this every podcast, it seems, that you just don't play the pick 5 unless you have a really strong opinion in at least one race. Because that's I've been burning money that way. The first weekend I burned a lot of money that way.
The only time I would say it makes sense to spread everywhere, you could theoretically have a sequence where there were 3 favorites you wanted to beat. It isn't going to happen often, but in that case, I could say getting as spready as that's a good idea, but otherwise probably a bit tricky. What other pools do you look to be focusing on, Scott?
Well, the other thing is, I realized after Ruby Notion yesterday that I really need to focus on some individual races, and that. Looking at the whole card, I've been spending too much time saying, how am I going to hit this pick 5? When there's an actual race that I have a strong opinion in, then trying to pull as much money out of that as possible is the way to do it. So just looking tomorrow at Saratoga card, there's the stake race is the honorable miss at Saratoga. And I know probably nobody who's listening to this program has their PPs out or anything like that. Yeah. But I love Vertical Oak in that race, and she's 8-1. She's breaking from the rail, and I'm against Finley's Lucky Charm, who's 8 to 5 and carrying 6 more pounds. So that's a race that I've already identified as I'm going to try to spend an hour figuring out how I can pull as much money out of that race as possible. And I'll do it using Vertical Oak and like Fabian and try to exclude Finley's Lucky Charm. But then also, just in case I'm wrong about Finley's Lucky Charm, try to have some kind of backup where I'll money back if she runs okay. But, really just dig into the race. Because I realized I never won any contest with a pick 5. I mean, my biggest pick 5 hit is probably 6,000. I'm probably hit it. I've hit it several times, 6,000. But I've pulled 20,000 out of a race before. So I really that's what I've learned the first weekend, and that's what I'm going to be focused on going forward.
I like it. You can't take a scattershot or one size fits all approach. You should probably. My question, which pools? Well, depends on the day. Depends where my strongest opinion is that day. The more you can tailor it and go right to where your strongest opinion is, whether that's maybe someday it'd be a pick 5, but a lot of days it could be an exacta or a double or a trifecta or a pick 3, and just taking one really good shot as opposed to trying to spread yourself too thin. Is that the direction you're going, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. And I'll get even more specific. I'm really another good thing about these contests is they remind you that there's many different ways to play. So the Monmouth Pick Your Prize Pool contest, it's win and exacta only. And I'm like, okay, so it's only win and exacta. Well, all right, that gives me an opportunity to fine tune my exacta play, which sometimes I forget about. And, in that contest, I hit an exacta that paid like $5,000. So I'm going to be looking tomorrow at the 9th. I'm going to be looking at the Vertical Oak Fabian exacta, and I'm probably going to crush that exacta. I mean, let's hope it comes in. But I'm looking at that's my angle for trying to crush the race. And like the Super. Okay, there's only 6 horses, so you're not really going to crush it with the Super anyway. But you might crush the exacta when you throw out the favorite.
When will you be up in Saratoga, Scott? It'd be great to have you on the show, or maybe even try to get you to one of these. I'm calling it the Naira DRF Saturday show that I'm hosting. It would be fun to have you on. What are your dates?
Well, I'm coming up August 8th for the World Horse Players Tour premiere. Would not miss that.
Nice.
And then I'll be up through the 19th.
That's terrific. All right, we'll look at some calendars and see what we can arrange. But I love the project. We're definitely going to need an update on that. Before I let you go, how is the big public handicapper contest going? I'm a big believer in what you said before, Scott, about how having part of the challenge that's great is having accountability for your picks. A way that anybody can get that is by playing on public handicapper, following your ROI, being able to put your picks out there in the world and have something to stand behind. How's the current contest going, and how can folks get involved?
Okay, well, let's see. I believe that you can still join the contest and be eligible to win the prize, the grand prize, which is a trip to the Horse Player World Series in Vegas next. I think it's the end of March, and you'd probably if you join this week, you'd have to play every single race for the rest of the weekend. I mean, for the rest of the contest, which goes through the Breeders' Cup. But it's a great opportunity to not only hone your own handicapping skills, but to see what other people are thinking. And, not just the regular public handicappers, but like up-and-comers, the regular being, the guys that the men and women that you hear, that you read about on Twitter or you read in DRF, but also, just your average Joe who hasn't made it big yet, but who has a good opinion.
The website is publichandicapper.com. Even aside from the big contest, there are monthly and weekly prizes as well. I think if a new player asked me how can I improve my game, I would put participating on Public Handicapper at the top of the list of things you can do, and it's all free. Scott, thank you so much for joining us here today. A closing thought for this show?
Sorry, you kind of fell out there, but it was great. It was great.
Closing thought.
Closing thought. My only closing thought is Vertical Oak tomorrow in the 9th of Saratoga. Include her and make sure you don't play your multis without her. She's 8-1. Anything
from you, JK? Closing thought wise, bet for tomorrow. Anything along those lines?
Yeah. My closing thought is to single Finley's Lucky Charm in the night.
Oh no, we're going head to head here.
I know. Yeah, no, I think she's going to be tough, but don't trust me. I think Scott's one of the sharpest out there, so I'll definitely take another look. But at first glance, I thought the way I was going to try to end the sequence tomorrow is Finley's Lucky Charm single, and then Monet Mo Problems for George Weaver, dropping once again from 75 down to. George wins a lot of races in Saratoga. It's kind of his key place where he does really well. He's been in good form a majority of the late spring and summer anyway. I think that horse could be tough. And the last, try to get cute with prices before, but I'm going to try to end it with single.
All right. I think so. Listener, I would take both of those picks for race 9 and number 2, Monet Mo Problems in race number 10. A little carryover tomorrow too. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, I think it's a double like 180,000.
Oh wow!
It is a carryover, but it's above my pay grade to try to tackle the pick 6 at Saratoga with that $2 minimum. The pick 5 is it's hard enough as it is.
Very wise point by Scott. Even with 50,000 earmarked for the meet, he understands because of that $2 minimum, the amount of money you have to spend to be competitive, to cover all the horses you want to cover. Taking too much risk on a bet where even if you're getting your money in good, the strike rate is going to be so low, maybe not the best place to spend the money. I agree with that. You need to have really strong opinions and be able to go super narrow in a lot of spots. Of course, for JK, money is no object. All right. That's all the time. Unless you want to respond to that real quick, that's all the time we have.
Okay.
I want to thank Jonathan Kinchin. I want to thank Scott Carson, Travis Stone, and Willie Nile for providing our intro. For more of his music, check out willienile.com. Producers Craig and AJ doing a fantastic job on the other side of that too thin wall as well. Most of all, I want to thank all of you for listening. We'll be back on Friday. JK, can you do Friday? How's your travel to Del Mar looking?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I should. I think I might go to Del Mar Saturday morning. So,
okay,
yeah, I think
perfect.
I should be fine.
So we'll be back on Friday. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.